How's it going, everyone? I am back with another video. This is going to be my Week 14 recap video, where I'm going to go through all the NFL games that took place this past weekend, break down my key takeaways, general thoughts on the games, all that good stuff. So, dive straight in here. So, the first game was the Thursday night game. It was the Cowboys and the Lions. And, oh boy, Cowboys disappointing performance from them, but you got to give the Lions credit as well. They bounced back from a not so great performance on Thanksgiving, mainly the defense. And the defense didn't play great here. They allowed 30 points, but they certainly outplayed Dallas's defense. But must win for both these teams coming into this game. Whoever won was going to significantly boost their playoff chances versus whichever team lost. Their playoff chances were going to be near life support. More so the Cowboys and the Lions, I think, but pretty much near life support. Record wise, certainly the Lions, but with how bad the Eagles have been lately, Dallas, even after this loss, still has a chance at the division. But yeah, Dallas, their defense coming into this game, they've been playing better since their bye week. They got guys healthy. Obviously, the trade deadline, two big additions they made, and it was a disaster this game. They could not stop the Lions at all. The offense was just hurting themselves, self-inflicted wounds. Schottenheimer talks about it in the halftime um, the halftime interview as he's walking up the field. Which, by the way, that's like the dumbest thing I think possible. You know, most coaches and players don't like talking to the media, rightfully so, understandably, especially when you're going to the locker room at halftime, especially in a game where, big time game and you're just frustrated how your team is playing. So I can't even imagine as a coach dealing with that, but that's beside the point here. Um, yeah, just too many self-inflicted wounds for Dallas. They're moving the ball, holding, things like that, kept putting them back. CeeDee Lamb having a big game. He goes out with a concussion in the third quarter. That was brutal. And the Lions were in control most of the game. Dallas is hanging around. They were down 3 scores at one point. They cut it to 3 in the fourth quarter. I'm like, yeah, they're going to steal this game, aren't they? Lions get a big third down conversion. They just could not be stopped. Too many mistakes for Dallas here. Their playoff hopes take a big dip. Although, again, the Eagles losing, they still get a chance at the division somehow. But we'll have to see what happens. Lions looked good here. The offense looked great. It's been good most of the year, not as good as it's been in years past, but since Campbell's taken over the play calling from John Morton, it's been better. So the Lions make it a playoff push. They'll probably make it, probably not as a division lead, but they'll probably, division winner, but they'll probably make it in the wild card. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Entertaining shootout here. Definitely a disappointing one for the Cowboys, but for the Lions, good win overall. Bengals, Bills. Oh boy. Bengals. They're going to bangle. They had it. They outplayed the Bills for like 80% of the game. Their offense cannot be stopped. The Bills' defense has been bad all year, outside of a couple outlier games. Mainly, honestly, it's been bad like the whole year, except the Jets game, pretty much. It's been bad with a week 2 Jets game. And the Bengals coming into this game, a decent amount of people are picking them, rightfully so. I wouldn't have been surprised at all if they won this game. They should have, like I said. The offense getting Burrow back to look good last week. The defense been picking up. They played great against Baltimore. The defense obviously played awful in this game, but for a stretch of this game, they were forcing the Bills into fourth down stops. Josh Allen's having to pull stuff out of his ass to get conversions. The defense, they were kind of bending but not breaking for some stretches of the game. They kind of got a break when James Cook fumbled it out of the end, or they got a fumble. They thought it was out of the end zone for a touchdown, so Zach Taylor challenged it and didn't win, but then they got a fumble anyway, so a bit of a break for them there. They got a touchdown out of it, and they're up 10 with like eight and change left in the game, and they blow it. The defense was just awful. Oh boy. And then the Steelers, they beat the Ravens, so the Bengals only would have been what, 2 games back? I don't know the tiebreaker over the Steelers. I know they split, but the Bengals I think would have been better if Baltimore had won that game. over Pittsburgh for Cincy here. But anyway, pretty much a must win for any playoff chance they had. Definitely could have easily won this game. They should have. Offense going into the game was good. Defense picking it up, as I mentioned. In control most of the game. And then what killed them was just two fluky interceptions. One, a pick six that the Bills got, and then the very next Burrow pass was deflected and picked. And then yeah, the Bills got a 4th-and-goal touchdown. Bengals still went down the field and scored. They had the Bills at a 3rd and 15. They shot them. They're going to get the ball back without a minute left. I think there's a decent chance they still win the game. And then yeah, Josh Allen scrambled, got the first down, and that just killed the game for the Bengals. The Bills win. Technically, mathematically, they're not out of the playoffs, but basically they are. It's going to take beyond a miracle at this point. They're not going to make it, barring something unforeseen. Although, I guess if any division is going to have a team with a losing record win it, could be the AFC North this year or the NFC South at this point. My God. But yeah, brutal one for the Bengals here. I think they're going to have to fire Zach Taylor, but I don't even think Zach Taylor's the problem. I don't think he's a very good head coach. I think he's honestly a really good offensive coach. Now, it helps when you have Burrow and Jamar and T. Higgins, obviously, and even Chase Brown, you can say. But schematically, I really like the way Zach Taylor calls the game offensively. He feels like guys are open, just a lot of short passes, intermediate routes, moves the ball up the field methodically, mixes in some deep shots of Jamar and Higgins, isolates them. I like the way Zach Taylor calls games, honestly. Maybe a hot take, but obviously you get more responsibilities than that as the head coach of the team. The defense for 2 years now has just been an absolute abomination. They really need to try to fine-tune that defense and try to fix it while Burrow's still, in his prime here, wasting his prime at the moment, and fix the offensive line too. But yeah, they're going to have to move on from Zach Taylor, unfortunately, I think. Maybe I'll do a video on head coaches on the hot seat at the end of the year if I think they'll get fired or not. Maybe that's a video I'll do. Just thought of that now. But yeah, the Bills, Kevin Wildes on First Things First made a good take about the Bills this year. It feels like most of their wins this season, Josh Allen has to play superhero and just pull shit out of his ass, like the fourth down touchdown I mentioned, the first one they got, even the second one at the end of the game. I think he kind of had to just wait and wait and wait. Then he finally found an open man. It wasn't always superhero play. The first one he improvised Shakir touchdown when nothing was there. It looked like 3rd and 15. He superheroes his way for a first down. It just feels like he has to just pull off a superhero performance to narrowly win every game for the Bills because their defense has been so bad. It's basically like not to the extent of how bad the Bengals defense was last year. It reminds me of Burrow a bit last year. But yeah, the Bills, it would have helped my Patriots since he had won this game. We could have just won one more game the rest of the season and clinched the division. Can still do that if we beat Buffalo this week, but we'll have to see how that game goes. But yeah, the Bills, I mean, they squeaked this one out, but I honestly think they kind of got a bit more lucky than they really deserved to win the game. Offensively, they did, but defense just awful. They caught 2 breaks. I guess the second one wasn't really a break, but maybe a bit of a break, but not as much as the first one. The first one, the ball just came out of Burrow's hands. Funny, something he will probably do 1 out of 100 times. Came at worst possible time for Cincy, so brutal one for them to basically end their playoff hopes. Bills, they won, but again, just something not quite right with them, it feels like. New Orleans and Tampa. Yep, this was a shocker. I don't know what the hell is wrong with the Bucs. Every year they start off hot, have a rough patch in the middle of the year, then finish the year hot. And maybe after they beat the Cardinals last week, people were thinking, all right, well, here we go. They're going to get hot again, especially with the weak portion of their schedule to end the year. And then you immediately lose to a team you can make an argument is the worst in football. At home, and a team that you blew out just a couple weeks ago. I know they didn't play phenomenal, at least the offense in that game, but still, you blew them out. Yeah, Todd Bowles, I seriously think his seat is getting hotter and hotter as the weeks progress here. I've never thought he was a good head coach. I think he's a great defensive coordinator, but as far as the head coach, and I know his defenses kind of get torched from time to time, but and they usually rough portions throughout the year. But I think overall, Todd Bowles is a great defensive coach and coordinator, but as a head coach, they're just stuck in purgatory with Todd Bowles, Tampa. They squeak in every year as a division winner. Maybe they win a playoff game, but nothing more than that. They only get in probably because the NFC South's been so bad since he's been there as the head coach. He, in my opinion, him and Byron Leftwich, the disaster of a run game in the line in 2022 ruined Tom Brady's last season in the NFL. So I kind of, um, what's the phrasing I'm looking for? Just, I kind of, I'm blanking on the word here, but that's just something in my mind with Todd Bowles. I always have where the team fails. I'm like, yep, well, not surprised. Anyway, yeah, Tampa was just sloppy here. They went for one on fourth down a bunch. They got stuffed fourth and short. The defense played okay most of the game, but they got them the ball back with a chance to put a game-winning drive to get her to win it. Probably should have picked it off and been at midfield. They probably would have won the game, honestly. Although who knows? And New Orleans defense got it stopped to win the game. K-Dot he caught it, but he was short on fourth down by like a couple inches, I think, maybe a yard. And New Orleans won. So obviously a big upset. Shuck has looked decent. He's looked serviceable in his couple of starts. The defense has been playing solid. Give New Orleans credit for going on the road, getting the win here. Tampa was just sloppy here. Baker, in MVP talks to start the year. Now all the injuries have really caught up. Baker's hasn't been playing great. The offense has been nearly as good. So the offensive line, a lot of people, ripping that. Yeah, Tampa just the offense isn't insane. The defense has been bad. Todd Bowles, people want him gone. People have wanted him gone from Tampa for years. Buck fans I've seen. Yeah, brutal loss. If they somehow do not win the division over Carolina, I think you have to move on from Todd Bowles, even though he just signed an extension. So give New Orleans credit for the upset win here, but Tampa, oh boy, bad loss here. Seattle and Atlanta. Well, speaking of firing coaches, Raheem Morris needs to be fired. I I don't know what more to say about him at this point. I mean, going into the year, people were saying, "Oh, the Falcons may be a sweeper team." I thought they might be. Week 2, they get a really solid one over the Vikings. Now the Vikings aren't as good as we expected them this year, but still, at the time, it looks like a good win. And then since then, they've just kind of floated around. They've lost a couple close games. They've won a few, obviously, but I don't know. It seems like the vibes down in Atlanta, just the team, just simply doesn't play to the amount of talent they have on it every week. They're tied at the half against Seattle. It's 6-6 at halftime. And then again, Raheem Morris, the defensive coach, I know he doesn't call it defense. It's Jeff Ulbrich. They allow Seattle to score 31 points on them in the second half. Now, I guess if you want to knock Seattle, I mean, their defense has been absolutely fantastic. You really like their defense pretty much all year, outside of that outlier Tampa game when they were missing a bunch of guys, and that was when the Bucks were still red hot. If you want to knock them, you can say that their offense and Darnold hasn't been as good. Obviously, you just look at the score, you'll think it has been from this game. Past couple weeks, it hasn't been great. The defense is, and maybe you can say the offense has been conservative based on how well the defense has been playing. But Darnold and the offense haven't looked too sharp the past couple weeks. If you want to nitpick, they look great in the second half here, but 6 points at half, you can criticize. They end up putting up 37. But Seattle, I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender just because the way their offenses looked. I think that might be how it looks the rest of the year. And do I really trust Sam Darnold under pressure? Like, and when I say under pressure, I mean in big game circumstances and literally when he's like pressured by defensive players. It seems like that's when he has some issues. I think the offense is going to just kind of look like this the rest of the year. Maybe more so how it's in the first half. Not as bad. I think it'll score more than 6 points a game, obviously. But think it'll just be kind of middle of the pack offense the rest of the year, and that could be what holds Seattle back from contending for the Super Bowl. But again, solid win for them here, even though the Falcons are bad. They're a team that is capable of being much better than their record is. But yeah, Falcons, they scored 3 points in the second half, just a disaster. Halftime, it's tied. You just absolutely don't show up for the second half, at least the defense. Raheem Morris, Zach Robinson, they need to be fired. I think you should keep Ulbrich. I think he's fine. But Morris, Zach Robinson, they need to go. That Kirk Cousins contract has looked like a disaster. Atlanta's just a mess right now. This is just a brutal loss. But Seattle, they're just stockpiling wins. That defense looks great. They're a dark horse. They are certainly a dark horse. Pittsburgh and Baltimore. So right away, I'll get to the play everyone's talking about, the Isaiah Likely catch. I think that was a touchdown. I think Baltimore got screwed. I even see some Steeler fans in the comment section saying that it was a touchdown. The refs bailed them out. I don't know how you don't call it a touchdown. He catches it, takes 2+ steps in the end zone, makes a football move, whatever you want to say, to me, and then the ball gets knocked out. It's a clear touchdown. I don't know how you don't call that a touchdown. But Baltimore had their chances after that. They couldn't get it in still. Honestly, it kind of reminded me of a game we played against the Giants in 2015. Odell, they called it a touchdown, but it was like very close, but the ball got knocked out by Butler. Similar play, but I don't know how you don't call this one a touchdown. I forget the exact play. It was similar when we played the Giants, but I don't know if Odell got 2 steps in. I forget the exact play. I just remember thinking of it when this play happened. But yeah, Baltimore, they had their 4th down after that, and Hopkins was open too. Looked like Andrews kind of intercepted the passing. It was for him, another Mark Andrews blunder, you can say, and incomplete. Then Baltimore, they got the ball back, and they're driving, and you think they're at least going to get a shot in the end zone. Lamar takes a horrible sack. You can't do that in that situation. They probably wouldn't have won anyway, but at least they would have had a chance for a touchdown to win the game. And Pittsburgh won. Pittsburgh, even though they got bailed out by the refs, in my opinion, they deserved to win the game. I think they outplayed Baltimore most of the game. They had the lead pretty much the whole time. They're up 2 scores a good portion of the game. The offense started out hot, deep shots. Metcalf had a good game. Then it kind of fizzled out a bit. The Ravens were getting the run game going. Keaton Mitchell, I like Keaton Mitchell. I remember his 23 season. He had a good year. He had a big run. Henry had a couple nice runs. Lamar had a touchdown run. Even Rodgers had a touchdown run early in the game. There was also another questionable call where the Steelers got a field goal, but then there was a questionable penalty in the Ravens, and the Steelers got a touchdown out of it. So that's kind of 2 touchdowns that the refs questionably handed the Steelers and then took one away from the Ravens. But if Baltimore had won this game, I think it kind of would have been them stealing the game because, like I said, Pittsburgh outplayed them for most of the game. Baltimore probably should have had. I thought they were going to win it, especially if Isaiah Likely had scored the touchdown. I think they win the game. But I honestly thought they were going to get a touchdown at the end of the game there, too. They took too much time on that last drive, it felt like. Just too long in between like 1 or 2 plays from what I remember. But yeah, both these teams have not been good this year. Just sloppy football all around for both these teams this year. Certainly some sloppy football here, but classic Steelers Ravens. The game's close. Good mix of offense and defense, but kind of on the lower scoring end, goes right to the end, and then one team wins. It's usually how most of these games go between these 2 teams. Pittsburgh got the win here. You got to keep Mike Tomlin's 500+ record intact, so you know that they'll at least get 9 wins or 8-1. But yeah, Pittsburgh leads the division at 7-6. Honestly, it depends on what team gets the 5 seed, but whatever team gets the 5 seed, if it's Buffalo, I am certainly taking them over the Steelers. And honestly, if if it's Buffalo and Steelers, I'm absolutely taking Buffalo over them. Now we just saw what Buffalo did them last week. If it's Baltimore, I'll have to see how the Ravens finish the year. But it's if they play right now in the playoffs, I would 100% take Buffalo. But yeah, we'll have to see what pans out. But as far as this game, the Steelers got the dub. They're winning the division at the moment. Ravens can still win it, but they're just not playing great. Showed in this one. Oh, forgot to delete the spread here. If I can actually delete it, that would help. There we go. Okay. Indy and Jacksonville. Well, I picked the Colts in an upset. I was kind of feeling okay with it. And well, boy, was I wrong. Doubted the Jaguars again. That certainly did not pan out for me. The Jaguars from the gate were just up. They were up the whole game. I never really felt they were going to lose. I think it was 7-7 early on, but obviously when Daniel Jones got hurt, I knew that pretty much ended any chances of Indy winning the game. Although Riley Leonard, I don't even think he was that bad considering the circumstances he was thrown in on. Poor Daniel Jones, already playing with like a broken leg. Then his other leg, he tears his Achilles. I think the Colts are on the decline anyway, but poor Daniel Jones, you got to feel for him. I'll talk about the Philip Rivers signing at the end here, but yeah, the Jaguars, you got to give them credit. They started off hot, then they kind of faded. I'm like, all right, I think this is going to be what they look like the rest of the year. And since then, they have played much, much better. They blew out Indy here. Really decisive win. They're leading the division. Looks like it's going to come down between them and Houston. I know technically Indy's selling it mathematically, but obviously a big question mark with Philip Rivers there. How is he's going to do? And then obviously the Titans are out of it. But yeah, the Jags, you to give them credit. The offense was clicking. The defense played great. Overall, great game from the Jags here. Maybe they're a bit of a sleeper team in the playoffs. I don't mean to, but maybe I've been disrespecting them, sleeping on them too much. But yeah, as far as Indy, what a collapse. Start off the year, what, what were they? 8-2? 7-1. I think they were 7-1, and now you can make an argument they're going to lose out based on their schedule. And then obviously, as far as the Philip Rivers move, it's just a Hail Mary for the Colts at this point. Now, the big question is, how is Philip Rivers going to do? If he can just be like mid, I think the Colts will have a decent chance at maybe winning a few more games. I don't think by any means they're going to the Super Bowl, but I don't know. We'll have to see how Philip Rivers does. Schematically, I don't think it's really going to change that much offensively. Obviously, you don't have to worry about mobility with Philip Rivers, 44 years old. But schematically, Shane Steichen, I really like how he runs the offense. Philip Rivers, obviously, he was with the Colts the last time he was in the NFL in 2020. He actually had a pretty solid year that year, and Indy went 11-5. They kind of had an under the radar season that year. So schematically, I don't think it's going to change much offensively. Philip Rivers is like even just mid. I think this Indy team can be decent enough to maybe sneak into the playoffs, but we'll have to see. Did not have Philip Rivers playing in the NFL this year on my bingo card. Although, I guess he did officially. I thought he officially retired, but I guess not officially. I remember that he retired a Charger. Then they had his old teammates fly out and whatever to celebrate them. But anyway, we'll have to see how he does here. I mean, the Colts quarterback situation, just what a disaster at the moment. Oh boy. I hope Philip Rivers does well, honestly. It'll be fun to see him. I'm sure he can take some hits. He's one of the tougher quarterbacks. I remember when we played them in the playoffs, he had a torn ACL in meniscus, and he played through that game. So Philip Rivers is one of the tougher quarterbacks like ever. So I'm sure he can take the hits, but how good is he going to be at 44? We'll have to wait and see. But as far as the Jags, great win for them. They're leading the division. We'll have to see what they can do in the playoffs here. Dolphins, Jets. Not too much to recap from the game here. The Dolphins just right off the bat. I kind of knew the game was going to be over there, 14-0 in the blink of an eye. They end up winning 34-10. The Jets got a special teams touchdown. Another special teams touchdown. The Jets have had the greatest special teams unit in NFL history since that friggin' Browns game for some reason. But besides that, just an absolute disaster for the Jets. Tyrod Taylor to come out of the game, and Justin Fields uh, was inactive for the game. So they had to have their undrafted free agent or undrafted rookie quarterback Brady Cook come into the game. So yeah, that pretty much sums up the game. The Dolphins just I was a bit concerned maybe the cold that was storyline going into the game. Certainly didn't matter here. Miami's hot right now, and they're trying to win out and make the playoffs. I'm a bit worried they're going to play spoiler for us week 18, but who knows? Yeah, not too much to recap here. The Dolphins just blew the doors off the Jets. The Jets just looked like a mess this game. Um, yeah, at least they got that special teams touchdown, but not too many bright spots from the Jets here. The Dolphins are red hot right now. This is a good example of why you got to let the season play out before you make any significant moves. Well, I guess this is a good example of why to do that because everyone's on Mike McDaniel. You got to fire him. You got to fire him. And the Dolphins looked like a disaster, and they've been playing much better lately. Now they played some bad teams, but they've been playing much better lately. So you got to give them credit. Just let the season play out before you make any decisions. So give credit to Miami here. Good win. This was just typical Jets football, though. Titans Browns. Yeah, this was a surprise. I, in no world whatsoever, thought Tennessee would be putting up 31 points on Cleveland here. They could not be stopped. And their run game and Tony Pollard looked like the Eagles' offensive line last season with Saquon. The holes Tony Pollard was getting was absolutely ridiculous. I did not see that at all going into this game. I thought I didn't think by any means this would be even half of like the score here. I thought this would be a low scoring, ugly game, but I just felt confident that Cleveland's defense is going to win them the game. Did not happen. As a matter of fact, the offense played better than the defense. Shedeur played a really good game. He had a bad pick. Excuse me here. He had a bad interception. But besides that, he played a good game. Now, a lot of people talking about how they need to fire Stefanski after the 2-point try. I've been saying maybe I think I've said in my videos, maybe, but I've been thinking for a while that they do need to move on from Stefanski. I thought they should have moved on from after last season, but they didn't, obviously. The defense is obviously not the issue. The offense for years now, for 2 years, has been the issue with Cleveland. Both years, Stefanski has changed play callers from himself to another one of his staff members last year and now this year too. So that's not a good sign. The offense has been the issue. Stefanski's an offensive-minded guy. There's all the rumors that him and Shedeur button heads. He doesn't like Shedeur. And then 2-point conversion to tie the game. Shedeur's red hot. He's playing his easily his best game as a pro, and you take him off the field. I was, as soon as I saw Judkins lined up in the Wildcat, I'm like, oh boy, if they do not get this, the amount of shit Stefanski's going to get. And I didn't really give a shit who won this game, but I guess I was kind of pulling for the Browns a bit, so my pick was right. But I was pissed off. I'm like, why is Shedeur not on the field? Obviously, and they have Judkins. I know the play was botched, but obviously you're not going to have Judkins throw the ball unless it's you're not going to probably have him throw it straight into the end zone. So there's going to be some trickery. Tennessee knows that. And it was just a complete mess of a play. I don't know why you don't just do a typical, well, not typical, but, standard play with your quarterback out there, especially when he played as well as he did. So Stefanski, I think they've needed to move on from him for a while. That's just another glaring example why there. But yeah, Shedeur in the offense looks solid. I will say Harold Fannin Jr. is actually a solid year. That's a good piece that they got in the draft. Judkins looks good too, obviously. I think Shedeur's got named the starter the rest of the season. Think that they should probably just rock with him into next year, see what he can do with hopefully a new offensive coach. I'm kind of neutral on Shedeur. I don't dislike him, or I'm not a big fan of him, and I kind of pull for him a bit, I guess. But But yeah, Cleveland, surprising loss here. Now they're a bad team, so it shouldn't have been, but the Titans are an even worse team. They had one win going into the game, and it was a lucky win. They should have lost to the Cardinals. The Cardinals didn't completely blow it with that bobbled pick that that ended up being in the end zone, recovered for a Tennessee touchdown. Titans got lucky in that game to win. Should have been winless going into this game. But the offense, easily their best game of the year. And 2 weeks ago in Seattle, they looked decent. They put up more than I was expecting. Then they put up a shitter against Jacksonville. And then they come back here and put up 31 against a really solid Cleveland defense. And the run game got going. So give credit to Tennessee. They got the dub, hurt their tank status, obviously with draft positioning, but obviously they're not thinking like that. So give Tennessee the credit for the win here. Did not expect that. Entertaining tank bowl game, but Browns just disappointing, especially the defense and Shedeur not being on the field for the 2-pointer. Commanders and Vikings. Yep. Score is a great way to just simply summarize the game. Don't think there's too much to talk about here. This was just an absolute disaster for the Commanders. And their first try, I think they got the ball right away, and they went right down the field into the red zone. They got stopped on 4th and goal. But they went right down the field, and I'm like, I knew I should have picked the freaking Commanders. But then after that, they got very little offensively going. I think their first drive out of the half, it was the same thing. They got to the end zone, didn't convert on 4th and goal. I think at least. Maybe I'm wrong there. But I mean, when you make J.J. McCarthy look like an NFL quarterback, that's not a good sign. He's looked like a disaster this year. They made it conservative for him in this game, rightfully so. They put up 31. Easily, I would say McCarthy's best performance as a pro. Didn't even turn it over. He only got sacked once, I think. I mean, this is maybe not shutting out everyone, 31-0, but this is much more what we expected the Vikings to look like this season compared to what we've seen. And it's mainly been from offensive line injuries and poor quarterback play. The defense kind of started off the year slow, but then they picked it up a bit. Now they really picked it up. Even against Seattle last week, they played solid. They got shut out last week, and then they shut out their opponent this week. And not only did they shut them out, they won 31-0. So you go from scoring 0 to 31 points. So they're basically out of it. It's pretty much too little, too late. I mean, mathematically they aren't. They're gonna have to win out, get a bunch to go their way. But yeah, probably too little, too late for Minnesota here. But yeah, I know. Maybe figure something out with McCarthy, make it conservative, just ride the defense, at least in this one. So great bounce back win for the Vikings. The Commanders, I don't know why Jayden Daniels is even in here to start. It's one thing if he's not injured, and I guess he's healthy enough to play here. Apparently it can't get worse, but he came out of the game with an injury again. And they kept him out as a precaution, especially because they were just getting hammered at that point. I think the game was borderline not borderline, it was out of reach the way the game was going pretty much. So I understand why they kept him out. But at this point, I mean, they said it can't get worse, and he comes out with an injury. Just keep him out the rest of the year, honestly, at this point. Mariota was playing fine. Actually, they've looked better with Mariota running the offense than Daniels this year, I think. I think Daniels is obviously better, but I don't know. Just keep Mariota in is what I would do. I don't think they're going to, but who the hell knows with this team? Just a mess and disaster of a year. But give the Vikings credit. Great win for them, but for the Commanders, this was certainly a brutal loss. This iced tea I'm sipping is really good. My God. Okay, sorry. Anyway, Jesus, that is really good iced tea. Anyway, Denver and Vegas. Actually, this score is wrong. 24-17. There we go. So the score is closer than this game actually was. Denver was up multiple scores most of the game here. The Raiders scored 10 points in garbage time to make it look more respectable. Actually, them kicking the field goal at the end of the game, a lot of people were saying it was rigged, the spread, because Denver would have covered in Vegas and kicked that field goal. Now, Pete Carroll said he was hoping they would have a second or two up on the clock and, attempt an onside and hope for a miracle. But I don't know. That definitely is a bit. I didn't bet the spread for Denver, but that definitely is a bit suspicious. Um, but who the hell knows at this point? Um, yeah, Denver, they were up 7-0. Vegas went right down the field and scored. And I'm like, here we go. Like, please pull off the upset Raiders. That it would greatly help my Patriots. And then Denver just kind of methodically couldn't. Well, actually, they got a punt return touchdown, so it was 14-7. Their offense kind of was stopped, couldn't do much for a decent amount. So it was only 14-7 at the half. But then Denver kind of methodically got the offense going, slow but methodical drives. They put up points. They're at 24-7. The defense is playing great. Geno came out of the game. They had, I'm pretty sure it was. I think it was an injury. I'm gonna look it up because now I'm kind of blanking on it, but I'm pretty sure it was an injury. Let's see. Yeah, it was a shoulder injury. Kenny Pickett actually looked decent. He had an absolute. It was in garbage time, but he had an absolute laser of a pass for a touchdown. I think it was to Trey Tucker, not 100% sure, but it was a laser. Now I don't know. I mean, at this point, I don't think they're going to, but why don't you just start Kenny Pickett? I mean, your season's over. Why don't you just start Kenny Pickett and see what you have with him? He's still pretty young. Is Kenny Pickett the guy? I don't think so, but you might as well try. What do you have to lose at this point? Your team is awful. You're out of it. So I don't know. I don't think they're going to again. But anyway, yeah, Denver, again, the score's a bit misleading, but the offense didn't have a pretty game. They got the job done. Defense has been great. Kind of typical Denver win, but at least it didn't go down to the last second here. But typical Denver win for this season. Not a pretty win, but they're getting the job done. Defense plays great. The offense does enough, looks decent. So give Denver credit here. Could have been a trap game. Raiders, just another disaster for them this year. Oh, speaking of disasters, Rams and Cardinals. Well, yep, this was a disaster for Arizona. Now, it was 10-10. It was like, okay, this is a bit interesting. And then from there, the Rams just absolutely hammered them. The Cardinals' offense looked decent. They put up, like I said, it was 10-10. Then from there, they just were struggling. They turning it over, sets getting pressured, things like that. Gannon, I think, is getting fired at the end of the year. I think his seat is like on a volcano. That's how hot it is. Um, Kyler, he might be gone. Them disconnect there, it seems like, with him and the team. Their season's just been a disaster. Start off 2-0, promising start. Then, since they blew that game to the Niners and especially the Titans, their season's just been completely downhill. They've only won one game since then against Dallas. And that was before Dallas's defense started to play a bit better. Even though he was in Dallas, that was actually an impressive win. Brissett, mild guy from the Patriots, 2 stints with us, actually looked solid with the Cardinals. He's certainly not their issue. Just a bunch of injuries is another reason Arizona's been struggling. But the Rams, yeah, Stafford looked phenomenal. He was laser sharp this game. I think he's betting wise. He took back over the lead over May for MVP. He looked great this game. I thought he would be a man on a mission after his sloppy, uncharacteristic performance he had against the Panthers last week. And yeah, the Rams just blew the doors off Arizona. They've been playing Blake Corum more and more, which I like to see because Blake Corum's my old guy from Michigan. So I like to see some Blake Corum. I just picked him up off waivers in one of my leagues actually last week. But yeah, the Rams, they're the Super Bowl favorites, rightfully so at this point. Great bounce back game. I guess if you want to nitpick, you can say the defense, the past 2 games. In this game, too, the Cardinals were kind of moving the ball. You can say the defense hasn't been too sharp, but I think they'll get that cleaned up. But for the Cardinals, just a disaster, just a complete disaster. Chicago and Green Bay, this was a really entertaining game. Tale of two halves. So the first half, Green Bay dominated. Caleb Williams barely hit any passing yards. It looked like it was going to be a complete rout. But Green Bay was only up, I want to say it was 14. Let me see. It was at 14-7 or 14-0 at half. Let's see. Um, let's see here. It's 14-3. And then in the second half, the Bears figured something out. Their offense was moving. They were having a tough time stopping them. The Green Bay defense was. But anytime the Bears scored, the Packers scored. I didn't think I thought Jordan Love was going to be sharp this game. I thought he would avoid the turnovers. He had one early on that hurt, but the Bears got nothing out of it. Green Bay's defense held. They played great in the first half, and again, they made the scene at the end of the game to win. But the second half, Ben Johnson figured some things out and was kind of cooking in the second half. Caleb Williams, much better second half than the first half. But like I said, anytime they scored, Green Bay answered, scored right back to even it out, net that out. But yeah, besides that early pick, Jordan Love was really sharp, had some nice deep passes for touchdowns. He was really sharp. Josh Jacobs in the run game got going. But back and forth, Chicago, they tie it at 21 all. Green Bay goes down the field, scores. And then Chicago puts together a good drive. They're passing the ball. This is something I think you can kind of criticize Ben Johnson for. They're moving the ball, passing it, and then they kind of just get complacent. They get too conservative running the ball, trying to pick up first down. It's a 4th-and-1. They call a bootleg. Now they had the play. It looked like Kmet was open. Caleb Williams is just, and you can say even DJ Moore too was open on the play. Williams, although I think DJ Moore, from what I've seen, was from conferences and such. DJ Moore was kind of the block and release, like the last read. But Caleb Williams, I think, was just a bit late on the read to commit, so it got picked. So that was, obviously the nail in the coffin for Chicago here. But yeah, it looked like they were going to punch it in with ease, the way they were moving the ball that drive. And Ben Johnson, I think he said he was going to go for 2 for the win. So who knows what would have happened there. But yeah, Green Bay's defense held and they won the game. So Chicago, I do think they're legit this year. Now, I don't think they're Super Bowl contenders, but I think they can maybe win a playoff game. I don't think they'll win against whoever they play in the divisional round, although it obviously depends on matchups, but we'll have to see. Now, Green Bay, I think they're Super Bowl contenders. They've kind of had an up and down season, but I do think they are Super Bowl contenders. And they made the clutch play at the end with the Bears. Hun right in there, or Hun, yeah, Hun. Why am I having an aneurysm? They Hun right in there with them. There we go. My God. So yeah, Chicago, they were hanging around. They were right there with the Packers. I think Chicago may win the next game. We'll have to see though. I think they play on next Saturday, I want to say. But we'll have to see how that game goes. Playing a team twice in that short of a time span, it's going to be tough. But yeah, Chicago, back and forth game was a great, hard fought game. Went to the end. Give them credit, even though they lost. They went from the 1 seed to the 7 seed with this loss, so that's brutal for them. I honestly think Green Bay is going to win the division if I had to guess, but it's 50-50. I don't think the Lions are, though they do have a chance. Obviously Minnesota isn't, but yeah, we'll have to see how it plays out. I think it'll come down to these two teams. If Green Bay beats them next week, I think their chances obviously are going to skyrocket sweeping Chicago, but we'll have to see. Really entertaining game though between two good teams. Packers got the dub. Give the Bears credit though; they almost had it. Just that throw was a bit late. Oh boy, let me clear my throat for this game. Houston and Kansas City. Boy, did I enjoy watching this game. So satisfying to see the Chiefs lose. So, Houston's defense won them the game. Like they've won them a good amount of games on their win streak here. The offense, as I thought, was not too great in this game. The Chiefs' defense was unstoppable in the third quarter. Houston, I think, had one down in the third quarter on 3 drives, and it was a 3rd and 17, and they just got it too. So the Chiefs' defense was unstoppable. In the second half, the only reason the Texans got points was because they basically by default were in field goal range off the interception Mahomes threw. And then they also moved the ball because Andy Reid questionably went for it on 4th and 1. I don't know why the Chiefs went for that. Tie game, it was 10-10 at the time. Number one defense in football. Your offense is struggling this season in general, especially this game. Your defense is playing great. Houston had nothing on offense. Why don't you just punt them the ball? But Andy Reid went for it. They didn't get it. Houston immediately is in field goal range. So I think they kind of got a morale boost from that. They end up capitalizing, scoring a touchdown. Um, and yep, then at the end of the game, that Mahomes pick on Kelce, that was brutal. That's like Kelce's second. That might be his. I think that's his third pass this year where he's had it in his hands and he bobbles it and it gets picked off. There's the Eagles one week 2. Then there was, I'm pretty sure if I remember right, he had one against the Commanders, and then he obviously had that one. And that one basically put the nail in the coffin when Houston made the field goal. That sealed it. Um, the Chiefs just got 2 cheap yardage plays after that when Houston was in full prevent, which upped Mahomes' pass rating from like 14 to 19. Mahomes played absolutely awful in this game. Now, I will say, obviously, I'm a massive Mahomes hater. I don't think he played as abysmal as his. I think he played very bad, but I don't think he played as bad as his stat line suggested. The Kelce pick, I don't. He threw it a bit behind him, but I don't think it was really his fault. But the other two, I don't think were very good throws from him. Especially the second one was a very underthrown to Hollywood Brown, I think. I was waiting for them to overturn the first one because it basically mirrored the Kelce catch against Detroit, and they called that a catch for Kelce. So I'm like, great. So they'll overturn this, and that'll be the other social media thing. They'll compare the two, say that the Chiefs get bailed up by the refs, which we all know is true. Uh, Actually, and then that's another thing this season. So there will okay. So one step at a time here. So the call against the Chiefs were holding. It was 3rd down. Was not holding. Bailed the Texans out. I think they punted on the drive anyway. Or did they? They may have scored their touchdown on that drive. I'm not. I don't. I actually. Yeah, I think they scored their touchdown on that drive, but shouldn't have happened. Maybe they punted. I'm not 100% sure. I think they got the touchdown though. Uh, so the Chiefs just, everyone's asking what's wrong with them this season. I think they're the same team as they were last year. You just take away all of the luck. They're getting every single play that can go either way. They got every single one to go their way, pretty much. Every single call that the referees make, especially crucial ones, went in the Chiefs' favor. They get lucky plays. They get every coin flip play to go their way. The referees give them plays, and they're still narrowly beating teams last season. I thought they had the single luckiest season in the history of sports last year. You take away that, and this is what they are. They're a mid team. I think they were mid last year, and they just kept getting every single game clinching or game deciding play that could go either way to go in their favor. Now it's reverting back to the mean, and they're getting those plays against them. They've had some questionable calls go against them. They have their receivers dropping some passes, especially the ones that are leading to interceptions. The 50-50 plays that could go either way that they got last year are going against them this year. It's evening out, and it is so satisfying to see as a hater of this team and Mahomes. Now, Mahomes, a lot of people are saying, well, I guess in general, a lot of people are saying the Chiefs dynasty is over. I don't think it's over as much as I want to say it is. I think they'll be, one of the better teams for at least as long as Andy Reid is there. I think they'll be one of the, even though he's kind of been on the decline play calling wise, you can say. I think as long as Andy Reid, I guess you can say as long as Mahomes is there, I think they'll be one of the better teams in the league still. But they're going to be going into next season. People aren't going to be looking at them nearly as scared and nervous as they were. All right, well, we know that the Chiefs are 1 or 2 in, Super Bowl odds. Well, maybe they will be, but anyway, basically, I don't think going into next season. Well, I guess we still got to see how this year ends, but at least as of now, going into next season, I don't think people are going to be talking about them as, all right, well, it's either going to be them or Buffalo or Baltimore in the Super Bowl. I don't know if they'll be one of those teams, or if they are, they may be the third option rather than option A, if that makes any sense. Their stock is dropping. And Mahomes, I think Mahomes has been mid for 3 years now, 2023, 2024, and I think he's gotten progressively worse over the past 3 years. And then this year. And some people were talking about it, but not as much because they kept winning. But now people are starting to talk about it because they're losing. Now, do I think they're losing because of Mahomes? I don't think so. But I think Mahomes has just been on a decline, and it's finally, now that they're losing, starting to show itself. And it's so satisfying to see. He had a 19 passer rating in this game. And again, not all of it was his fault, but that's awful. And then what against um what against what team? Denver, he had a really bad passer rating. I mean, I remember last year against San Francisco, he won with like a 60 passer rating or something like that. Um, the defense has been better than the offense for 3 years now, and that people are ripping the defense. And yes, they've been strong to get off the field on third down, especially third and long. But again, the defense is top 10, and they're still ripping it. The offense has just been mid for 3 years now. It's carried them and bailed them out on their playoff runs, and now it's finally getting talked about that they're losing. It's so satisfying to see. But anyway, there's my Chiefs talk. Give Houston credit; they played great. Went into Kansas City, and again, they were down their top two tackles going into this game, and then literally the first offensive play, they have another one go down out for the year. So that's brutal. But Chiefs must win as much as they've been average mid this year. Must win for them. Championship pedigree. And Houston went in there. Sunday Night Football, prime time. And their defense just dominated. It was a bit nervous when Houston was up 10-0. Kansas City scored 10 straight. The third quarter, it looked like they just came out motivated. I'm like, yeah, they're going to win the game. But Houston's defense held firm. The offense did just enough. Give credit to Houston. 8 wins. I do not want to play this team in the playoffs right now with how well their defense is playing. So give them credit. Great win for them. And as always, so satisfying to see the Chiefs lose. Philly and the Chargers. This was a mess of a game. Both defenses played great, except I think a good portion of the game was poor offense rather than good defense. What I mean by that is I don't mind watching a kind of a lower scoring defensive game like this as long as it's good defense and not bad offense. And when I say bad offense, I mean poor play calling, things like drops, poor throws, just questionable play calling, things like that. The Chargers are throwing it a bunch here. Herbert has a broken hand. He got sacked, 7 times? He's got a broken hand coming off surgery. They throw. They try to run it a decent amount. It's been the whole season that's kind of been an issue with the Chargers offense. They've been throwing it way too much. They also got Hampton back, so that was a bit of a boost to them. He had a couple nice runs. Vidal's been good too. The Chargers line obviously has been a disaster for them most of the year, especially since Joe Alt has gone down. Herbert's under pressure immediately. So the Eagles defense has been playing great lately. It feasted this game, getting pressure on Herbert. Herbert statistically had a rough game, but he had some nice runs and was clutch late to tie it. And then in overtime, even though it was only 2 field goals, points were at a premium there in this game. So Herbert was clutch when they needed him to be. Their first drive, they went right down the field and scored. Dump off to Vidal went nearly the distance, and then they got a touchdown a couple plays later. I'm like, they might blow the Eagles out at this rate. But then Philly's defense, Philly's defense, stiffened up and played well the rest of the game. The Chargers defense was great all game. I thought that might be the case. I was a bit nervous Saquon, the offense, would randomly pop off here. It's kind of what a bit of my gut was telling me, but I thought Jesse Minter would be light years ahead of Kevin Patullo as far as the chess match between the two coordinators. The Eagles' offense most of the game very much showed him with the ball. Hurts had 5 turnovers. It was a disaster of a game for him. He had 2 turnovers on the same play, threw a pick. The Chargers fumbled it. Hurts picked it up and then he gets strip sacked. So, well, not sacked, but he loses the ball on the tackle. Chargers recover it. That kind of a game for Hurts. Yeah, the Chargers were up most of the game. Obviously, a field goal heavy game in this one. I think I said 23-17, so I think at least for my score prediction, I wasn't too far off. And then yeah, I did yeah. So back and forth game. Philly, their only touchdown came from it. They did a fake tush push and pitched it out to Saquon. He scored, although it looked like there was a missed hold on the play. Probably shouldn't have counted, but Chargers won anyway. When they scored that touchdown, I thought they would win the game. Then they got another pick on Hurts after the Chargers punted. They tied it. Philly out a field goal. And when they got the field goal, I'm like, all right, I think that's it. I didn't think Herbert was going to get him down the field. He did. Field goal for the Chargers. I thought they were going to miss it. Overtime, I'm like, all right, they're going to stop the Chargers, get a field goal, and win. They held the Chargers to 3, a field goal. And then 4th down, I didn't think the Chargers jumped offside. There was movement, but I never thought he jumped across the line. So questionable there. They kind of got bailed with the refs there. And then when they got near the end zone, I'm like, they're going to get a touchdown and win the game. It's going to be demoralizing for the Chargers. They get another pick and win the game. So Eagles, another tough loss for them here. What are they on, a 3-game losing streak? Yeah, 3-game losing streak. I'm pretty sure off the top of my head. Chargers, they got the win. Ugly win. Defense played great, but the offense obviously struggled. It's against a great defense. The offense and Herbert obviously a week off of hand surgery. Considering it's a good win, but not the prettiest offensive game. But they're 9-4, very quiet 9-4. They started off the year hot, then kind of hit that rough patch. They've been playing very well since then. Outside of that Jags game, that was a disaster. But besides that, they're playing well. They're winning games. Quiet 9-14. They get a brutal stretch of their schedule coming up. We'll see how they finish. But yeah, Philly, just the offense has not been good all year, not been consistent at least. The defense has been bailing them out. They won them the Packers game. Packers, and then who the hell did they? Why am I blanking here? Excuse me, I'm dying. All right, they beat the Packers, and then who else did they just? I gotta look this up. Hang on. Oh, the Lions. That's right. Then the defense basically won them both those games. The offense didn't do much in either of those games. And then we just saw they were up 21-0 against Dallas. They don't score after that. Turn it over a bunch. The offense has not been good all year, especially on this losing streak. And you can even make an argument they're extremely fortunate to even be where they are record-wise because they very easily, and you can do this for every team, but Philly, they very easily could have lost week 1 if CeeDee Lamb doesn't have all those drops. Week 2, they probably lose if Kelce doesn't have that drop to go into the red zone or the end zone. Week 3, they lose if they don't block 2 fourth-quarter field goals, including the game winner against the Rams. Week 4, Bucky Irving, that fumble doesn't get if that fumble, I don't think it was a fumble, so they correctly ruled that, in my opinion, and that's the only touchdown the Eagles got that game. They very well, or not that game, the second half of that game, I mean, they very well could lose that game. So they've had a lot of narrow wins that they very easily could have lost. So you can make an argument that they are fortunate to even be at 8-5. But yeah, vibes are down. The offense is not good right now. The defense is playing great. I think they'll make the playoffs, probably win the division. I mean, they get the Raiders this week. If they lose to the Raiders, oh my God, I don't even know. But you have to imagine they'll beat the Raiders. if nothing else, at least in an ugly game, the defense carries them. But we'll have to see. We've seen this week, any given week, any given team, especially this season's been crazy with all the upsets and crazy in general. So we'll have to just see what happens. I think they'll make the playoffs, but I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender because of how bad and inconsistent their offense has been. Some Eagles fans are calling for Hurts to be benched. I've never been a big Hurts guy, but I don't think he's the main problem. I think the main problem this year has been the Lions declined and mainly Kevin Patullo. I think Hurts. I've never been a Hurts guy. I still think Hurts is not a great consistent passer. He has, a nice passing. We saw him have a nice pass in overtime. It was 3rd and 16. It was a dime. And his deep pass, especially to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, he has some really nice passes there. Excuse me, I have something stuck in my throat here. I'm going to take a sip of this iced tea. Ah, Jesus. Okay. Sorry about that. Anyway, um, he has some nice deep passes. He has some, nice passes here and there. But for the most part, as a consistent passer, a lot of people, I agree with the narrative. If you make Jalen Hurts throw, your chances to win the game are going to significantly increase. And I saw a stat that he has to throw 30 plus times. The team is like a horrendous record. I forget what it is. It was like one and something. Or maybe it was this season or something like that. But anyway, um, actually, yeah, it had to have been this season. There's no way they only had one win, and we said to attempt 30 plus passes. Although, sorry, I'm getting a notification on my phone here. Anyway, yeah, so I don't think they need to bench Hurts. I think Hurts is just honestly, again, I respect the person Jalen Hurts, but as a quarterback, I think it's absolutely ridiculous. The top 5, maybe even top 10 arguments. I still think Hurts is just mid. I think he's middle of the pack. I think he's greatly bailed out by the team around him. And again, if you had to make Jalen Hurts, if Jalen Hurts is on the Bengals, I think the Bengals are picking in the top 5 for drafts. Maybe okay, maybe that's not a great analogy because they are right now. But basically, I'm blanking on how to put an analogy here. I just think if you put Hurts on a mid team that doesn't bail him out with talent, or in this case, a great defense, I don't think that team is going to be one of the better teams in the league. Put Hurts on, let's see, the Lions this year. I think their record is probably a few games worse. Put Hurts on, again, the Bengals. I know it's not a great example because they only have 4 wins, but put Hurts on the Bengals. If Burrow was starting the whole year, since he would have much more than 4 wins, but put Hurts on the Bengals, where he has to throw a million times a game, and he's got a historically bad defense. I think they have a worse record. My point is, since Hurts has gotten to the NFL, I've always thought, like many people, he's just mid. I think it's, again, ridiculous. The top 5 arguments. He has some great games, both Super Bowl games. He played great. Some games he looks great, but they're not winning because of Jalen Hurts. Rarely do they win because of Jalen Hurts. It's just because Jalen Hurts, he avoids turnovers, he makes conservative throws, he just makes throws that need to be made, but rarely does he have to like improvise and make a ridiculous Houdini superhero play. It feels like it just feels like when they win, it's not in spite of him, or well, it would have been in this game, but not because of him. He's just a game manager. Is basically what I'm trying to say here. So even though I don't think Hurts has been good this year, well, I think he's been okay. I think he's playing at a similar level he has, honestly, most of his career. It's just because the play calling has been much worse. Now it's really getting shadowed on him, or reflected on him. I don't know. I just went on a big monologue there. But anyway, the Eagles just are not great right now. The defense is. The offense really has to figure some things out. They want to make a Super Bowl push. But we'll have to see what happens here. But for the Chargers, ugly win, but they got the win. Good one for them. I will say in this game, though, a couple deep balls to AJ Brown. AJ Brown probably should have caught some. They probably still should have won this game. AJ Brown had some bad drops. Hurts did throw a couple dimes to him deep. And again, Jalen Hurts, even though I just ripped on him there, like I said, he does have some nice deep passes, especially to AJ Brown. But yeah, a good way to put it is my Hurts monologue there is excuse me again. Eric Mangini on First Things First yesterday said basically the more you ask Hurts to do, the worse the team does offensively is basically what he said, something along those lines, and I agree with it. Good way to summarize it there. Okay, make sure all the games here. Yeah, okay. So it was a pretty good week of football, good entertaining games, bunch of entertaining games on paper this week too, and the rest of the season obviously is the playoffs get near, teams fighting for seeding and such. Certainly my team is is fighting for the 1 seed. I'm still 9 here. Although hopefully we can just beat the Bills and secure the division. If we lose to Buffalo, we'll only be a game back, and then we're probably going to be playing a borderline desperate Baltimore team in a game that just got flexed to prime time, which is much as I'm excited to play the Ravens in prime time, like the good old days, with Brady and Flacco and way back then. I am a bit nervous. Sunday Night Football in Baltimore, that alone makes me nervous. And again, against a borderline desperate Ravens team, we'll have to see what happens against the Bengals this week. But anyway, teams fighting for playoff seeding. Should be entertaining as we wrap up the year here. But oh yeah, and obviously playoffs for fantasy start, well, at least in most leagues this coming week. I made it in 4 of my 5 leagues. One of them was a disaster. I made a trade the middle of the year. I sent when I was 2-5, or I was 3-5. I sent McBride in a late round pick over for Pitts. Obviously a significant downgrade, but I knew I probably wasn't going to make the playoffs and the teams I was playing and how bad my team was. So I swapped Pitts for McBride, but I got a much better. I got a 5th rounder, and I traded like I think my 12th next year. So basically, I made my team worse, but not to the point where if I was going to make the playoffs, or if I was going to miss the playoffs, it wouldn't be because of that. And it made my team worse, but I still had a chance at the playoffs. But I probably knew it wasn't likely, so I built for next year. And then I actually just traded Ja'Marr Chase yesterday because my team finished 4-9. I can't get dead last, so thankfully I'm not going to get the punishment in that league. But I sent Ja'Marr, and I got a 4th rounder for him. I got offered a 3rd a couple weeks ago, but I just wanted to stockpile some wins. Try to finish like 500. That obviously didn't happen, so I sent him for a 4th yesterday. Anyway, I put on my general manager hat and built for next year. But besides that league, I am a top 3 seed in all the other leagues. One of them I'm 12-2, the 1 seed. I'm hoping to win the title in that league. Think I get a good chance at it. Hopefully I can win it in all my leagues, but probably not going to happen. But good luck with fantasy, betting, picks, I always say. Hopefully you did good this last week. But I will wrap this video up here. I'm going to release, hopefully tomorrow, my Week 15 score predictions video, so be on the lookout for that. But I'll wrap this one up here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Take it easy, and as always, go Pats.